Welcome to Despite Popular Belief, where we discuss reform, biblical theology, and a culture full of opinions and agendas. I'm Stephen Lauterbach, and today we are talking about church branding. Hey everybody, I know a lot of you have heard me talk about our Patreon page that we call a base ministry support, where you get bonus episodes, bonus content, sneak peeks about everything that we're working on. I'm also asking for input on how to develop the show, things that you like, things that you don't like. Today, I'm actually going to feature one of the full-length episodes that was a base ministry support exclusive. So I'm going to pull back the curtain so you guys get a chance to see some of that stuff that we provide on there. I'm not going to do that all the time because I want there to still be some value to that bonus content for those base ministry supporters. So you guys are going to get a taste of that today, and we're talking about church branding. I have one of my former bandmates, Nick Robertson, on the show who does branding. He's very good at it, very successful, and he's helped his church out, several other churches, businesses, all that kind of stuff. This is the best guy that I know for this conversation. And is it bad for churches to be spending money on marketing and making things draw your eyes to good advertising? Like, does that stuff matter? Is that too seeker? Is that, maybe there's some controversy in there, but this is a great conversation. I wanted you guys to get a chance to see some of this stuff, and let's just jump right into it. All right, guys, I'm really excited to have one of my best friends in the world, Nick Robertson, on the bonus episodes, no less, for our base ministry support. Nick Robertson, welcome to the Patreon page.
I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, Nick and I have known each other for years.
Years and years and years.
Yes, and many of you have heard me talk about the metal band I used to play in. Nick was the vocalist and co-writer of just about everything we did for the main lineup. So, Nick, I don't know if you want to share, a story of how we know each other, or if you have any sentiments.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I've got lots of sentiments. I think one of my favorite stories is actually the day that you and I officially met, and how that played out and how that turned into a nickname that has stuck until this day. But I remember, so I came in already having an associate. So I came in to our college at that time, Greenville, as a junior. And it was just a couple weeks into the first semester, that I was there. And I was sitting in the dining comm. I was just eating by myself. And I remember, I don't remember exactly who I talked to or how you found out that I was a vocalist, but somehow it got around, and you and I started talking. You came up to the table and you're like, "Hey, we might be doing this. Stop by practice. Give me your number." So you handed me your phone.
Yeah.
And it was one of those old, it wasn't an iPhone that I was used to. I actually had to double punch and stuff. And so I'm trying to get my name into your phone, and I couldn't figure out. And then you just ripped the phone out of my hand, and it was N1KE, and it was just. And that was my name from there on out. So
yeah, instead of a space between your first and last name, you put a 0. So you became Nickaroby. I didn't
Nickaroby.
Yep. I didn't even let you finish spelling your last name. I'm sorry.
It was awesome.
I was a different person back then.
Yeah. No, we both were.
I think I'd like to have you on for one of the full length episodes that's not behind the paywall. I texted you earlier, mini documentary style. Our metal band. I got the banner behind me here.
Yeah.
But I think that would be fun to have you on as a co-host to reminisce and just tell stories from the road.
Be amazing.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's shoot. We were dealing with idolatry and all that stuff, and I know, at least for myself, the obsession, and I needed to grow up big time. Anyways, story for another time. So you've done a lot of creative work since college, and you were wildly successful at photography. My wife just always compliments the stuff that you've done for us, for like our wedding and stuff, and she loves
Yeah.
your style. I love your style. It's moody.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
So like you were very successful with that, and maybe you can tell us how you got into that, and then what that eventually turned into as what you're doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I got out of college, and I think that this was probably a little similar for you as well. Like, we'd been pushing the band really, really hard, and then we're all like graduating and trying to get married and figure all that stuff out. And I was kind of lost for a little bit. Like, I really thought that music was going to be like my thing. Like, I was just going to be on the road touring, making music in the studio, maybe running my own recording studio at some point, but music was going to be what I did. And so when I very first got out of college, the first job that I got was for a local news station back in my hometown. And so what I did there was what they did was they would sell airtime on the local news station, and then we would go create commercials for the companies that would buy that. So we had like a lot of local businesses and stuff that would buy airtime to promote their businesses on our channel. And then we would go shoot just like little 10, 20, 30-second spots for them to run their commercials on that channel. And so I did that for a couple of years, and God bless the people I worked with. I was fresh out of college, thought I knew everything. I was the bee's knees, I was a twerp. That was rough, but I learned a lot at that job. It was a lot of fun. But that's where I really cut my teeth in like learning how to shoot video and take pictures and stuff like that. So I've been doing pictures and stuff like that since a little bit even before college, but it was always just kind of for fun. But then when I started doing it for businesses and things like that, like realized like, oh, you can kind of make money with this stuff. And then I had a couple of friends of mine that were like wedding photographers. I'm like, that might be kind of fun. So I reached out to them. I was like, hey, could I do some second shooting and just kind of see if, that might be something I'm good at, could be good at, that kind of thing. And so they let me tag along. I ended up shooting a small wedding for a good friend of mine. And then it just kind of took off from there to where I just really fell in love with not only taking pictures, but being able to interact with people like kind of on that intimate level as pictures are. And so I actually ended up leaving the commercial job for the local news station to go work at a church for a little bit. And then unfortunately that didn't work out, but I was able to then really focus on trying to do photography full time. And it was a little sketchy, a little scary at first because I didn't really have any savings, didn't really have a backup plan. It was just like, hey, this job's not working out, so I'm going to just go after this, which is kind of a mirror image to what happened, just a few years ago before I started the business that I have now. And so I just dove into it like head first, kind of like we did with the music, just got obsessed with it. Used to have my friends just come hang out and like, hey, I'm going to take your picture, and just tried to get really, really, really good at it. Just fell in love with it. And then just started learning about business with it along the way. And so, that all kind of happened. And then not too long after that, we actually ended up moving out to Utah, where we live now. We've been out here for 7 years now. Yeah, I think about 7 years. Wow. That's crazy. And when we got out here, I was like, well, I'm just going to keep rocking and rolling with photography.
Yeah.
But I went from like a pretty small pond with not a ton of competition to where I can make some decent money to a really, really, really big pond with a lot of incredible photographers. Yeah. And I was just like, crap. So I tried really hard for a long time to make it work, and I just couldn't. And so I was back and forth between part-time jobs and trying to make photography work. And then it kind of got to a point where I was able to, I think after a couple of years of just being here, being in the market, being in the industry, my name was just out there enough to where I had enough clients to where like we were okay. And we were rocking and rolling, and we just kind of kept going and pushing with that. And that was working. and started to have a lot of success, met some really cool people, started to be able to do a lot of really cool things. And it was growing, and we were really excited about it, really happy with it. But then my wife got pregnant, and I was just like, things are going really good, but I wanted something that was a little bit more stable.
Sure.
And I think I kind of chickened out just a little bit, but I wanted something that was more stable, more predictable, because we had a new baby coming.
Yeah.
So I went back and picked up a marketing job that I got to do for a couple of years, and that was a lot of fun. It was really outside of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of my wheelhouse, because the marketing that I'd done before had been really content based.
Okay.
And with the marketing job that I picked up, like, it was content based, but it was also lots of strategy. It was the behind the scenes of the marketing, of like the nuts and bolts of like who we're targeting, how we're going to target them, how we're going to retarget them. Here's all of the things that we can use to do all of those things. And I hadn't really been exposed to too much of that prior. And so that was an interesting 2 years. And that job and ultimately culminated into realizing that they didn't really need marketing, like traditionally, so much as like customer data management, because they were already a huge company. Like they were a big company, had tons of customers, and of course they were, looking to acquire new customers, but like they had a super solid customer base as is, but their systems and processes on the back end were just kind of a little loosey goosey,
a little clunky.
And so we're like trying to set up sales and figure out how to do all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And that was way outside of my wheelhouse, but I was like, I want a job, so I'll try to figure it out. And it got to the point where we both realized like, this is just not, it's just not working. And so again, it kind of came to that point where like, man, like this job isn't working. So now I have to make a decision. And so we were able to part ways, and they were super gracious. And it was the catalyst into what the last 3 years of my life has been. And that is with Wild Eyed Creative Co. So when I parted ways with that company, again, they were very gracious and very generous. And, Riley was about 1 year old at that time.
Okay.
And my head was spinning a little bit. I was nervous because I'd been doing marketing and a little bit of photography on the side as well. And so while the money was a lot more stable, I was gone all the time, working just all the time. And so I was kind of in a tailspin that day. And, I called up Pastor Dan, and I was like, dude, I don't know what to do, man. I'm kind of freaking out.
Yeah.
And he actually gave me some advice that I was kind of taken back by, because nobody had ever said this before. But it was just like, I want you to take the next 4 weeks. And he's like, I don't want you to do anything. He's like, I want you to get your head on right. He's like, because if you just go hop into another job, you're going to be back in the same position because you are trying to make this happen. He's like, I want you to take 4 weeks. And he's like, I just want you to relax and rest and spend time with God and get your head on right. I was like, wow. All right. So that's what I did. And, at the end of that 4 weeks, I was kind of like, all right, it's decision time. And so I was debating, I was like, do I just need to like go to Home Depot and just get something part-time and try photography again and rock and roll with that? And that was almost what I was going to do.
Wow.
And then I just kind of thought to myself, I was like, my daughter's been here with us for a year, and I have barely spent any time with her or my wife. And like, I was fat and out of shape and unhappy, and just like, I was like, I don't want to do something that's going to take me away from the thing that I took the job to try to create a better life for in the first place.
Right.
And so I was just like, I spent a lot of time praying. I was like, God, photography is it's what I'm good at. It's what I like to do. It's what I've been able to be successful with before. But I was just like, for me to be a successful wedding photographer, that requires just being gone a lot and busy networking and dinners and, all of that stuff to really get to the level that I wanted to get to. And I was just like, I can't do that. Right.
Yeah.
So I was just like, man, what else is there? Is this the Home Depot? What do I do? And then it was just kind of interesting. Like I started making a list. I was like, okay, here's all of the stuff that I can do. Right. And this is one of those things where I think it's a little serendipitous because I spent a lot of time being really frustrated with the fact that I decided to get my 4-year degree because like a lot of what we did in college was just like tutorials.
Yes.
Like you go to class and your teacher is like, open your tutorial, literally a tutorial book to this page. We're going to start this tutorial. Here's the tool. This is what it does. We're going to do the first page of this tutorial together. And then your homework is to finish the tutorial and then bring that back by the next class. And I was just like, literally every single class was that.
Yeah.
And, so I spent 30 grand to teach myself how to do it anyway. And I was just like, that was really dumb. But when I'm sitting down making this list, one of the things that was on that list was web design. Now, I'd only ever had an intro class to web design, coding, all of that stuff. And I'd only really had intro classes to graphic design and stuff like that. It was stuff that I'd played around with, but it's not something that I like actually went to school for. And so I'm like, all right, like I've done a couple of Squarespace sites. Like I built my own Squarespace site for my photography business. And I'd done that for another photographer and, a couple of friends and things like that. I was like, I wonder if I could do web design. Like I was really comfortable with Squarespace and knew there was a lot more I could learn about it, but it was something that I had a pretty decent handle on at the time. And I was like, I wonder if I could do this. So I was like, God, I'm going to try this and we're just going to see how it goes. I was like, I'll give myself another 4 weeks to make some money. If I don't make any more money, then I'll go to Home Depot. Right.
Yeah.
And so within that 4 weeks, I reached out to all of the contacts that I had from the photography industry. And I made more money in that 4 weeks than I normally did in a full month at my marketing job.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I was just like, okay, so I'm just going to rinse and repeat. God, if this is a direction that you're okay with me going, then I'm just going to take it 4 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
And every 4 weeks, the money just kept coming in. The clients kept coming in. And after the first 2 months, I was like, I think I can do this.
That's awesome, dude.
I was like, I think I can do this. And so I was able to set a little money aside and actually went out and bought like a course on how to like run a Squarespace business and figure all that out. And then that really helped kind of propel me forward in the beginning because, when I first started, I knew how to design stuff, but I was still really, really naive as far as business stuff was concerned. So I was only charging a couple $100 a website, $400 or $500 a website. And, after I took that course, I jumped up from $400 to $500 a website to like $1,200 a website.
Yeah.
And then did that for 3 or 4 months and then jumped $1,800 and did that for a few more months and then jumped up to $2,500. And then I got to the end of 2019 and I was just like, holy crap, dude. Like I completely replaced my income plus a little more.
Wow.
From my marketing job. And I was just like, wow. Okay. All right. So we're going to do this for another year. And so I really dug into like business stuff, not just like the technical stuff, but like understanding value and pricing and working with people and just, really dove headfirst into that. So going into 2020, I was super amped. I was like, all right, this is going to be awesome. And then I booked my first few clients and then everything shut down.
Yeah.
So that was a little scary, but I was able to still finish out 2020 strong and made the same that I did in 2019, which I thought was crazy because everybody was shut down and everybody was freaking out. So, and then going into 2021, we, at the end of 2020, going into 2021, I made a lot of pivots really, really fast. And so I think the biggest thing was for me progression wise was going from just doing websites to doing websites and branding to now doing brand strategy, branding, and websites. Because a lot of what was happening was, I was getting people that like, okay, I need a website, but they didn't really have much content. Some of them had logos, some of them didn't. I work for photographers, so most of the time their images were fantastic. So we had really pretty images, but then we didn't have much verbiage, and the verbiage that we did have was kind of cringy sometimes because writing about yourself is really hard. And so we would get really pretty images with barely any text, and I'm trying to do some graphic design kung fu to like flesh this out into like a robust website, and I was just like, this sucks. It's not helping them. I'm not enjoying it. And so like I gotta figure out some kind of pivot to where I'm either working with people that have the content, or I'm able to scale in a way that allows me to help them get that content or create content for them. So we can really have a robust website. And that was just kind of progression. And then really here in 2021 was when I decided to pivot to like putting strategy first before any content creation, before your logo, your branding, your website, any collateral. I was just like, we've got to figure out who you are, who your business is, and where the heck you're going and what you're trying to do. Before you create any of that stuff. Because a lot of what was happening is I would get these photographers and I'd build them a website, and then they'd come back 6 months to a year later. I need another website. Like it's time to redo it, or I need another logo. And I was just like, what I was doing when I first started wasn't helping businesses in the way that I wanted to help businesses. And so I was like, there's gotta be a better way. So, so getting into 2021, doing that, raising prices again, and kind of restructuring how we do things. We're halfway through the year, and I've already done more than what I did in my first 2 years. And so looking to finish out 2021 as strong as possible, and then looking to scale even farther in 2022.
Wild stuff, dude. I hope that's encouraging to, those handful of patrons that we have here on the page, that maybe they have some kind of creative outlet and they're not sure if, like, I don't know, maybe the 9-to-5 isn't for me. I've got this other passion, and like, could I make this work? And you touched on something that's very critical, but like you were in communication with God about like, I'm going to do this 4 weeks at a time. God, like if these doors are open, I'm going through. If they're getting closed, I'm going to Home Depot, whatever it takes. And like you had your family in mind. I love that.
Yeah.
So people might be wondering, what does any of this have to do with, I don't know, theology? This is a theology show. Yeah. So I was curious about, you've got all these strategies, this branding, this marketing. Should churches invest in these kinds of things? Should they spend lots of money on this? Like, is it worth doing? Is it unethical? Like, what are your thoughts on doing the branding for churches?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to preface this with saying that obviously I have a cognitive bias towards branding. It's what I do for a living.
Yeah.
But from a theological standpoint, and the proof has been in the pudding with my own church. So I was very fortunate to be able to also lead worship for our church. Like I'm the worship leader for Canyon Road Church here in Ogden, Utah. And when Dan had come in, the last episode I was on a long time ago, we kind of had talked about slipping through the cracks of church and all of that stuff. So Dan kind of came into a bit of a mess. where things had just, they just went south for really strange reasons. And it was really unfortunate, but when Dan came in, and he was just really patient, and he didn't come in, a lot of people, when they come in, especially to the situation that Dan came into, a lot of people, I think, would just come in with heavy hands and make a lot of changes and just, kind of rebuild it from the ground up. And Dan was just very patient. And as him and I started to develop a relationship, we really started talking about like the vision for the church and what we thought was important, and in his heart, and where he thought God was going to bring the church, and what God wanted to do with the church. And ultimately, even though what had happened prior was difficult, God still has and had the same plan for Canyon Road all along. So even with the previous pastors and stuff like that, we were still a very family focused church.
Yeah.
That's like who we felt like we were supposed to minister to. Like that was our strong suit. Like families were really important to us. And Dan came in with that same heart. And so as we began to like talk about that and think about maybe swapping the logo, or at least updating it somehow, getting a new website, and just kind of doing all of that, like we really started to think about like, what does that mean that we're like a family focused church?
Yeah.
And as we begin to dive into that, what I started to realize was the parallel to what I do on a daily basis with my clients is like, when you have a product or a service or something that you're trying to put into the quote unquote marketplace, if you throw it out there with no purpose or drive or expectations, or if you just throw it out there, nothing's really going to happen, right? The age old saying is, if you try to appeal to everybody, you'll appeal to nobody. Right.
So it would almost be like you're not being a good steward of what you've been given, and you've been given this church.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And so Dan coming in with that heart of like, hey, we're still going to minister to families. Families are super important. That's what we want to do. Okay. So then we started to ask just a lot of questions to ourselves. Like, what do younger families want? Like, what are they going to respond to? What are they not going to respond to? What speaks to them? What things are they going through in their life that what's going to resonate with what they're going through? What problems, what pain points that we use the term pain points a lot. Like, what are they struggling with, and how can we speak to that? Right. So if we just spend a marketing budget just putting out Bible quotes on pretty pictures and just this really vanilla generic stuff, God's word will not return void. So I'm not saying that doesn't work. I'm just saying it's not super effective. Right. And what we've seen is a pretty explosive growth since we were able to reopen our doors until now. We have a lot of new families, and we really, when we took a look at like just the church and the way that it looked, it was super outdated. It hadn't been updated in a long time. Like, we've got stories of the update process, man. It was hilarious. But we just had like a lot of the palette woods, early 2000s vibe. Right. So we're like, all right, first thing, let's take a small budget and just update some stuff. And we just did what you can do with some LED lights, a couple sheets of drywall and some LED light strips. Yeah. It was incredible. Like we ripped a bunch of stuff off the stage, painted the background black, consolidated our two goofy looking screens into one in the center. And then just made some strip lights and just, kind of updated things a little bit. And then we had some like super nasty carpet. So we ripped that out and then just epoxied the concrete floors underneath.
Cool.
It was cost effective, but it was also like going forward, people spill stuff, kids make messes, just made it easier for our cleaning crew as well.
Yeah.
So we just really started to think about like making the experience better for the people that are going to physically be there, but also like when we're putting things out on Facebook or using Google AdWords or any of these marketing methods, we really want to speak to the people that we feel like God is encouraging us to minister to, just the same way that God would call a missionary to a certain country. We feel that God has called us to minister to families. And so we want to do everything that we can to not only draw families in, not just to have a big church, because we're, I would say, small to medium size. I want to say we run maybe 100 people on a Sunday morning. I mean, it's nothing crazy, but it's enough to keep going, keep the lights on, and keep progressing. And we're growing, and God is definitely moving and changing hearts and changing lives. So said all of that to say, yes, marketing, branding, all of that stuff is super. I think it's super important for churches to be more effective in their ministry.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're the you're the perfect guy to do it, man. I mean, you've played music your whole life. You've,
Yeah.
been a worship leader so many times throughout your life.
Yeah.
And I think your heart is just huge. It's massive. Like Grinch after Reformation. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
dude. No, you're not grouchy at all, dude. You're you're one of the most positive people. One of my favorite things about you is whatever I'm telling you, you're just excited to hear about it. You're very energetic like that. I love that about you.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah. And I love your website work. Hopefully that's not too reductionist, but like the branding process that you helped me with for manifoldministries.com, that was so much fun picking out colors and images that fit the brand. Like, man, that's awesome. I don't know. It's good stuff.
Yeah, that was to me, like, and I think this is why we made the pivot that we did. When I say we, so I couldn't do what I do without my wife. Like, she is hands down my foundation, my rock. Like, I wouldn't be who I am, wouldn't be able to do what I do without her unfailing love and unwavering support through all of my nonsense, all of my crazy freaking harebrained ideas, and just all of the stuff that I have unfortunately put her through in the process of trying to grow a business. So she doesn't really necessarily interface with the business so much, but again, she's my anchor, she's my rock. And then my buddy from way back in the day, Nathan.
Oh, Crabtree?
Yeah,
I know.
Yes. Yeah. So he's been able to come on board and help me with the copywriting aspect.
Oh, awesome.
So he's been doing that. And then we're also kind of going forward. We're going to bring on another designer as well to kind of help us facilitate some of the website stuff, so that we can start scaling to help more people in 2022. So we're kind of in the early stages of building like a very small team, so we can start managing a few more people going forward. But yeah, I think again, with that pivot, like, one of the big things that was really important to me was like, I actually wanted to be able to help people, not just give them like this flashy, cool, like, here's a really pretty website, but like, I don't know if it's going to help your business or not. Like, I hated that feeling. Like, I wanted to know that when we launched, their business was going to start to grow because of our efforts and what we did, not just with the building of the website, but then again, with the strategy and just the, like going into the fundamentals of like, again, who their ideal client is, how we're going to speak to them, just all of that stuff, to really make sure that like their businesses are going to be able to grow in a way that allows them to be the most effective and best versions of themselves as photographers that they can be, not only to serve their clients with passion and purpose, but to also reclaim a lot of the stuff that they had lost through the process of trying to build their own business, and get that time back and get that freedom back and have enough income steady enough to where they can live life on their terms and really be able to just, I don't know, just be happy. I think that was the big thing for me too, because, working 9 to 5 is, it's hard. It takes a lot out of you. Even if you like what you do, it's hard, because you really are at the end of the day giving the best hours of your life to somebody else.
Mm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think there are a lot of people that our worldview and our opinions have been so shaped by our culture and not the Bible and not God's word and not God's promises that we think the 9 to 5 is the only way to go. Like that's just what you have to do. Like you got to go to school and then go to college and you got to do this and you got to do that, and because that's how it works.
Yeah.
And you watched me go through a lot of this stuff. Like it was brutal. It was so brutal. Just like between me and God and my faith and just trying to understand and then trying to be faithful and like work that job, and just the anxiety and the depression and the medication and just all of that stuff. Like, I think that if biblically speaking, venturing out and following those passions and creating something of value to serve, I think that's the key thing. It's one thing to try to grow a drop shipping business with cheap crap now, where you can make a lot of money, but it's another thing to create a service or even a product-based business that really serves somebody, like a mission field that you're called to, where you love those people, like love them, and you want to serve them, and you want to see their lives impacted for the better because of what you're offering and what you're doing. And I think that that's such an underrated, undervalued thing that we see time and time again throughout the Bible, where even the disciples, a lot of them, like they had their own thing, like they did their own thing, and that's how they made money and that's how they survived. Jesus called them out of that when they were disciples and stuff. But like, I think I've always gone back to the biblical story of the talents, where to one he gave one, and was it 3 and 5 or whatever. And I think for me personally, and I do think that this is not necessarily universal, but for a lot of people, I think for a lot of us, we get that one talent and we want to bury it in the ground because that's the safe thing to do. The 9 to 5 is not easy, but it's safe. A lot of times there's stability and, things like that. But I think one thing that I'm really being stretched on, not just with business stuff, but just in my life personally, is that God has called us into a life of faith and radical love with him and for his people. And that's challenging, even for somebody like me that does have a big heart and I genuinely love people. There's still another level of service and obedience to God, another level of just deepness with him. We were talking the other day about some of the things I'm struggling with right now, and just, again, it's just another opportunity to go to that next level and just have a deeper relationship with him. Because whether you work a 9 to 5 or have your own business or you're doing branding and marketing for your church or not, like it's all about him. How are we having a relationship with him? How are we loving him? How are we helping other people do the same thing? And I think that's my big drive, and why I like doing the branding the most is because I get to get into those deeper, more intimate parts with people about why they're doing what they're doing, like what's the purpose. And we really get to explore a lot of those questions, and I get to share my faith a lot, which is something I've never really been able to do before. So yeah, sorry. I know that's kind of a little bit of a side tangent, but
no, I love it. That's great. This is good stuff, man. I know you've had a chance to share the gospel on stage, when we played in the band. So, I mean, I would never discredit saying that you never had like a platform for that. You did, and you were faithful, and we did it in biker bars with oh man,
with so much smoke we couldn't talk.
I couldn't sing. There was so much smoke in there. The air was dry.
Oh, it was bad. Yeah.
I'll never forget. I could say this behind the paywall. Because what was that? It was St. Louis. Something Spoon. Oh man, we played there a couple times. Battle of the Bands was there. I'm drawing a blank on it. The Greasy Spoon.
Greasy Spoon?
Was it the Greasy Spoon? Oh, I can't remember. I'm thinking of the one where we finished our set and that large dude that was bald, big beard. He came up to me. He's like, "I love your music, but your pants are gay."
I don't remember that. Oh wait, was it
It wasn't Fubar, was it?
so there was Fubar and then there was the other big one where is it the one where I almost fell off the stage because like the monitor like almost flipped over because they were the angled wedges. Yeah.
I think that was the Greasy Spoon. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of that, but I know what you're talking about now. Yeah.
Oh man, we got to do it. We got to do an episode about the band. We got so many stories.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so many stories.
Shoot, man.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting too because I think a lot of what I've been able to learn and understand and do with my business has, in a kind of a roundabout way, been an answer to a lot of the things that you and I used to talk about in the band, like how are we going to grow this? How are we going to scale this and make money? How are we going to take this beyond college and turn this into a livelihood?
Yeah.
And we weren't able to do it then, but now I'm like, I know now.
Yeah. I mean, we used to do so much on social media in the band days. And social media has changed so much. The algorithms have been like the biggest killer ever.
Yeah.
I remember the days on Facebook where let's say you had 700 friends, if you made a post, all 700 friends saw that post. See it. And that's great for business. If you had 700 fans, all of them see the new track that you posted. Not anymore. Yeah. If it's not getting organic traffic, your people aren't seeing it.
Yeah, it's really, really, it's a much more comprehensive approach these days to where, hashtags are important, but when it comes to like Instagram's algorithm, and I'm no expert by any stretch of the imagination, but the thing that I've seen remain consistent throughout all of Instagram's algorithm updates, same thing for Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, all of the major platforms, what they prioritize is things that are going to keep people on the platform. So when somebody clicks on your content and they spend time on that content, whether they're reading it, interacting with it, whatever is going to keep them engaged the longest, that's the stuff that the platform is going to promote. And with Instagram's recent update, they said they're no longer a photo sharing app, and that had a lot of people freaked out. But what that really means is that they're just going to prioritize video content over picture content. So if you you made a video and you grabbed like a still frame for that video. Yeah. And you made a post with that still frame, same caption, same hashtags, but then you made another post that's actually the full video with the same caption and the same hashtags. Your video will just organically get more traffic than your picture post. So we're starting to see that, but a lot of that is because video is more engaging than just a picture and a bunch of text. Video keeps you on your phone staring at the screen longer. And so obviously they're going to promote things that are going to keep people on the platform longer because that's how they make more money. But the good news is that the thing that's been consistent throughout all of this is businesses and or churches that provide valuable content. And you can only provide valuable content if you know who you're talking to, which is why branding is so important. But if you are providing valuable content that people want to engage with, your stuff will start to get more traction. But a lot of the times what's happening is, especially churches and a lot of businesses, they're posting just this random one-off stuff. So there's no cohesion, there's no traction, and there's nothing for people to really necessarily engage with. Right. And so that's why a lot of people don't see traction on Instagram, is because they're not consistent. and their posting times and how much time they're actually spending on the platform. But then their content is just all over the place. Like a lot of Instagram pages you go to, and if you didn't look at the name, you would have no idea what that company's about or that church or whatever. And so again, the thing that's remained consistent is providing consistent, valuable content for specific niche down audiences, which is why branding is so important. That's why big companies spend millions and billions of dollars on branding and marketing every year, because for every million or billion that they spend, they make back fivefold or more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is why it's so important. So knowing who you're talking to and how you're going to talk to them to give them information and content that's valuable to them, that's how you really start to grow. It's not just hashtags. It's not just video. It's the whole thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Wow, this is gold. See, I was going to ask you, as we're coming up on 45 minutes here. I just picture you having some kind of podcast or video podcast at some point. You've got so much information. You know the technology. Is that in the works? Are you gonna do anything with that?
Yeah. It's been on my heart for a while. I've wanted to do it. I think the biggest holdup has been the way my current systems and processes are set up. I don't follow my own advice because I run myself into the ground just being so busy, working with clients, trying to get clients, managing clients, all of that stuff, to where I'm just, and then, you factor in like trying to get to the gym at least a little bit, being a good husband, and good father and that kind of stuff. And I get to like 5 o'clock and I'm just like, I'm just out of juice. So scaling going forward into 2022, building a small team is going to allow me to focus on the parts that I'm really good at, which is like the brand strategy and really connecting with people. But that it's also going to give me that cushion of time to start the podcast and the YouTube channel and really focusing on putting out content.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, I think this is a good place to stop. Man. Let's work on getting a full-length episode back in there together. I love having you on. Thank you for sharing time out of your busy schedule. I mean, I know you're constantly working on other stuff, so I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. No, thank you for letting me come back on here. It's always a pleasure to get on here and chat.
Awesome. I love you, dude.
I freaking love you, man. Love you.
I always love catching up with Nick. He's one of my favorite people in the whole world. If you're curious about more of the stuff that he works on, maybe you have a small business or something that you'd like to launch, or maybe you have a church too, and like you've got questions about branding, or you'd like to get some branding work done, Wild Eyed Creative Co. You've heard me talk about it on the show before. You heard about it today. I'll post that link and stuff on the show notes page for you guys. I hope you enjoyed that bonus content. If you want to see more of that stuff, you can support the ministry and get extra episodes, video and audio. I just sent out exclusive stickers to our base ministry support. If you'd like to join that, it's at patreon.com/despitepopular-belief. And of course, this is a Manifold Ministries podcast. So all the show notes, everything we've discussed today, including merchandise. If you guys want some cool shirts, hats, mugs, all that stuff, you can get that at manifoldministries.com. And then you just click on Despite Popular Belief. All our stuff is on there. And in fact, if you want to share this show with somebody, the best way that you could do that is to share that Manifold Ministries link with people, because it's got all the podcast platforms, video links, audio links, like I said, the merch links, any scripture that we use to cover in these discussions. And sometimes that's helpful when you're talking to your friends, or I hate to say it, but maybe you're having a debate online and you're like, man, what was that scripture reference that I heard on Despite Popular Belief? Go to that show notes page. I got all that stuff listed there, and it can be a helpful resource to you guys. Hey, I got nothing else for you. I hope you guys have a great week. It's been really good to catch up with you guys, and I'll see you later. Stand before kings.